All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to our panel discussion on artificial intelligence and digital marketing in the cannabis industry. We have a very illustrious panel here, and we'd like everybody to introduce themselves and tell us what they do, what organization they're with.
Sure. Testing. Okay. My name is Brady Madden. I'm founder and CEO of Evergreen Digital. We're a full-service search engine optimization or SEO agency serving the cannabis space.
Hey, I'm Ben York, CEO of Genetica. We help people make more informed decisions. So that's consumers, retailers, bud tenders, general managers, everyone across the spectrum. Help them harness their data, layer in new customer data, all that kind of stuff.
What's up, y'all? My name's Jim Makoso. I'm CEO of Flowe Technology and Lucid Brands. Lucid Brands, we're a processor in Seattle, Washington. We sell products and distribute them to a few hundred stores. And Flowe Technology, we work on cannabinoid emulsions and nanoparticle formulations for CPG brands.
Hey everybody, I'm Harrison Rosenblum from the Flowe Agency. I'm one of the founders. Since 2019, we've brought our know-how from the traditional marketing world to cannabis to run growth and performance-oriented marketing campaigns for retailers, brands, and pretty much anybody that's in the cannabis industry.
Harrison, you could probably start us off. What are some ways in which you've leveraged digital and AI in the cannabis industry?
Yeah, definitely. I think nowadays there's a lot of different opportunities to leverage AI in the cannabis space as it relates to marketing. A lot of the kind of busy work type tasks with some of the work that we do with content and just having a constant flow of new information out there for some of these channels can be the process can be quickened through AI. But a lot of what we're doing is leveraging customer data that dispensary owners are already sitting on to make marketing campaigns more sophisticated and more informed. So things like creating lookalike audiences from customer segments that are just sitting in your point of sale or maybe with your CRM or loyalty provider, and using those to kind of amplify the performance of digital media campaigns and different marketing activity.
Yeah, so for those of you who work maybe in products, on the processing side, we work with a few hundred retail stores where we deliver them products. And so we're always trying to find ways to optimize how we service our customers, right? First step, get products on the shelves, but probably the more important step for us as processors is how do we manage the sell-through of those products in the stores? And so we have a few tools that we use. One of them is a tool called Headset. I think people use it out here in Michigan. I know they're in a bunch of states. But we essentially built a Power BI kind of Python hybrid system to take the data from Headset, interpret it to build our own dashboard so that we can be a little bit more effective. We're a small team. We have 3 salespeople. There's 11 of us total, so tools like this that really empower us with really good analytics to help a store determine what we should be selling them, maybe things that aren't selling that should be selling better, or things that we've sold them that maybe don't work in their market. Some of these tools really help us optimize those things with our customers.
Yeah, AI is our specialty. So we like to call it more augmented intelligence rather than artificial intelligence, though, because our job is not to replace people, it's to help them do their jobs better, right? So in one way, we're collecting information from all those different tools that they use all across the tech stack, from the POS, inventory, loyalty, connecting all of those tools, and again, to make more informed decisions instead of looking at different siloed systems, pulling that all together, looking at it holistically to make better decisions. But we also do it with customers as well, right? So when you fill out the intake form, understand experience level, what kind of headspace you're looking for, any medical effects, and then generate actual rationale for what why that product is the right fit for them too. So less of a, hey, what can I help you find? And more, oh, I see you're here looking for help with anxiety and you're looking for a pre-roll. This is really good for that because of X, Y, and Z terpenes. And actually you want to pair that with this because these are really good together for achieving what you're looking for. So it's about looking across the spectrum, pulling in all that information from different tools, and providing the bud tenders with that information to be more effective as well.
So I think from an SEO perspective, or where I'm at, there's a lot of great technologies coming out. AI certainly in creating content and those sorts of things. But I think it's also, there's plenty of tools that have been around for a long time that we have access to. Google Analytics, Google Search Console. Those are tools that have been free and available for a long period of time. And I think starting with some of those, tools that have been used for a while for diving into data and learning what you can find out about your dispensary. Is it ranking for non-branded keywords or only branded keywords? So there's plenty of things with that, but I think the biggest thing that I'm focused on is on the menu side of things and making sure that your menu can be readable by search engines. Historically in this space, it's been a lot of iframe menus, which are essentially hosted on a third-party provider. And then although it's on your website, search engines can't read it individually like they would a typical e-commerce menu. And so I think moving people over to native e-commerce menus and really focusing on optimizing those has been really the biggest focus for me.
Excellent. What kind of mistakes do you see some retailers making, and are any of these technologies helpful in remedying that?
Yeah, I think, and it kind of goes back to what I was just talking about with the iframe menus and even marketplaces. I see a lot of dispensaries and operators that are using and paying a good amount of money for, Weed Maps, Leafly, and some of these sorts of things, and they're essentially stepping in between you and your customer. And so being able to have a native menu that has individual pages on your whole site that search engines can fully read and understand, it allows you to be able to make your entire inventory searchable on Google. So if somebody's searching for a dispensary near me, then they can find your business, or if they're searching for a product like a vape pen near me, or a pre-roll of a certain type of a strain near me, and those sorts of things. And so I think a lot of operators are missing the boat on not having a menu that's fully indexable by search engines is probably one of the biggest things. And then I think outside of that, just not branding themselves enough and not finding a niche and focusing inside of that niche. If you're selling weed to everybody, you're selling it to nobody. And so making sure you have like that dialed in brand and, really going after that, I think is going to be a big thing.
For me, the biggest mistake I'd see that retailers make is not a sexy topic whatsoever, but it's really about being consistent and upgrading your best practices around your data management, because garbage in, garbage out, right? If you're not adhering to best practices and having your whole staff adhere to that as well, it's really easy to slip up, and the tools that a lot of these systems are to give you, they're only as effective as the information that you're providing. So if you're not keeping, and I know it seems like a cost up front, it's extra hours, but that does yield benefits, even weeks, months down the line. Keeping things consistent and up to date and filled in as much as possible too, I think really goes a long way in making sure you're actually able to leverage these more advanced technologies. That's one of the biggest things that we see is we end up having to enrich and supplement POS data because it's pretty sparse. And you can't really do a lot of the more advanced BI that we were talking about earlier without having like real clean, clear, consistent data.
Coming from the product side where, we're working with customers, probably the mistake that I've noticed the most, at least I can speak for my team, is being a small team, salespeople, right? The motivation is what have you done, this day, this week, this month, right? You have your best month ever, and then next month you're chasing sales again. So one of the areas where we were really missing out on, at least a couple years ago, was we were just trying to take a bunch of information, right, what we sold the previous month or the previous quarter, and using really crude tools, basically just Excel and pivot tables, to try to make more informed sales decisions. And, that works really well if somebody knows how to, manipulate data in Excel using pivot tables. Still a really good tool. Pivot tables work if you really know how to use them. But for a salesperson that maybe isn't as experienced in that way, it was a big waste of time. They were trying to take a bunch of data and try to figure out how to sell, and it was a waste of time. They just needed the data so that they can go sell effectively. And that's where, kind of we stepped in at the management level to build this tool that we use now in order to just give them the answers that they need immediately, right? Who are the bottom, 30% of the accounts that are trending down in sales, and in what product categories are they trending down? And by kind of empowering our team with those tools, we noticed that not only did our sales increase, but our salespeople were happier. And probably the biggest opportunity that we missed out on there was how to inform our customers in a way that they could receive it with information on how to sell our product. And so this kind of tool that we built, it took us 6 months to build it. I had to go back to school to learn some new tools. That wasn't, I've been out of school for like 20 years, so that was not easy. But certainly a missed opportunity there, and ways that I see, at least in my case, small companies improve is, especially companies that are selling products to retail stores, is using data that's readily available, large amounts of data, but processing it into actionable insights very quickly so that you can act on it. And that was a missed opportunity for us. We missed that opportunity for years, and thankfully we got that corrected.
I've seen retailers make a lot of mistakes as it relates to marketing. I think one of the main buckets, to break it down from, is not asking enough questions. And what I mean by that is, one, not asking enough questions of their marketing partners and not asking the right questions. So just taking everything as face value and just believing it because, this group or person might supposedly be an advisor or expert at a certain thing. The other would be not asking enough not asking enough questions or pushing the boundaries as it relates to regulations. In many markets, we've found ways to tiptoe around some of the regulations as it relates to digital billboards versus regular billboards. So I think it's important for retailers to just be asking the right questions. The other thing, and a major problem that I've seen, is treating each customer as if they were the same and communicating to them as if they were the same. So not utilizing, this wealth of data that you as a retailer might be sitting on to inform how your communication cadence is with the client. That person that hasn't been in 180 days is not the same as the customer that's coming in and buying pre-rolls every week. So really making sure that you're utilizing your data and all of the different insights you have to inform your marketing campaigns. This can go all the way down into how your creative strategy is informed and many other different aspects of your marketing.
Just a little follow-up. Does your staff need to be sophisticated to implement this stuff, or is it something that anybody can kind of figure out?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think with some of these more data-driven strategies, it is best to just leave it to the experts. Also, just given all the turnover that you might have with your staff, it is important to have a group that can kind of just guide you, as opposed to having to train people every single time somebody leaves. Given the state of affairs in the retail world, the likelihood that you're going to have somebody new on your staff, over the course of a couple weeks, months is pretty high. So yeah, I think leaving it to the experts is a good look.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would echo that, leaving it to experts in a sense, but from our standpoint, we use a lot of third-party tools. We have to, right? Alpine IQ, Spring Big, these are platforms that retailers use to market to their consumers. And as effective as those tools can be when you use them correctly, you still have to know how to use them correctly. Those companies are in the business of selling you their services, not helping you make money. And, we recognize that, that there is a symbiosis there. But certainly, we need these third-party tools to be more effective, to have a competitive advantage. So, what we do, and again, we have a small team, so, people generally need to be an expert in whatever tools we're using, but generally we have a training session with every new tool that we use. Alpine IQ does a really good job of this, Spring Big, where they'll host you, they'll do a demo, and then after we have that demo, we have a follow-up with that same company where specifically the marketing person and the salespeople come in and kind of get the training before we deploy the tools. And we found that to be really helpful. And then anytime we use a new tool, we kind of have these touch points. We have a weekly sales meeting on Wednesdays every week, and we kind of segment that hour into marketing tools and then sales, and that's kind of how we track how well those tools work. But we found that, kind of leaning into the company that, in our case, for whom services we're purchasing to help us, kind of lean into the stores or support the stores more, leaning into them and letting them kind of educate us as a first stop, but then having our own internal touch points afterwards enables us to kind of optimize that. So lean on the company for the subject matter expertise, but then kind of internally have that discussion, at a lateral level.
I think about it in two different ways. On the one hand, to that point earlier, you definitely want to lean into the tools that you have. One of the common things I hear is like, I don't want to have to hire a data analyst, and you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to have someone who specializes in this area just to make sense of this information. So definitely leaning into those tools to make sure that you're not wasting, not to say wasting, but like spending money unnecessarily on someone whose entire role is just that. For a small store especially, like that's just an unnecessary cost. But the one thing I will say is having, and this goes back to my earlier point, having clear SOPs around data best practices, I think is a really good way that even with high turnover, at any level within the store, you can still implement that as a best practice so that everyone is on the same page about how they're entering orders, how they're managing the products that are coming in the door. That starts at the top, but setting those best practices and really reinforcing it. We think about SOPs a lot from how you're managing, the intake of products and things like that, but it extends all the way to data management and how you're actually using those systems day in and day out.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that I think having an expert being able to help you understand what the data is saying or what the tool is telling you, I think is going to be an important thing, especially when it comes to creating the strategy. You could certainly, have some people that maybe aren't as educated on some of these things, executing what the strategy is guiding them to do. But I think at the end of the day, having somebody that, especially cannabis, it's like there's a lot of people that know digital marketing. They know the different channels inside of digital marketing, but they don't know this industry and how it pertains to this industry. So having, the experience of digital marketing, whatever channel you're focused on, and then being able to understand the industry so that your internal team doesn't need to keep teaching or coaching an agency or a person about the industry before they can even create the strategy for you. It's definitely going to help saving time on that front. But, looking at a lot of the tools that are coming up, AI related or otherwise, they pull good information and there's good data behind them, but you still need to have somebody that can say, okay, this is bullshit, this is bullshit, this is bullshit. Yeah, we really need to focus here, and then just kind of get the fluff out of the way. Because I think it's very commonplace with a lot of these tools, AI and otherwise, that they'll call out all of the potential issues on your website, but 65% of them don't even need to be worked on because they're not gonna provide a return for you on your investment of marketing spend and marketing focus. And so I think it's really being able, like when I do a SEO export, I'll get this huge export, but then I need to go through it and figure out like what doesn't matter and then what are the things we can really focus on that are going to actually drive the results. It's kind of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, I've got this huge bit of data, but what is the 20% of it that's going to drive 80% of our results? And I think focusing there is going to be huge, and leveraging an expert to be able to help you get to that point faster is makes all the difference.
Excellent. How important is SEO, and how do you use it to navigate the regulatory scheme that you have to deal with?
Sure. So I'd say I'm definitely biased on this one, obviously, given that it's an SEO question.
And what is SEO?
SEO, so search engine optimization. But I think more broadly, just think Google. Google search, that's where most people are at these days. Although it is starting to wane with AI and with GPT and ChatGPT being owned by Microsoft, I think there's more things coming up with that. Actually, just 2 days ago, they lost their court case, Google did, against their antitrust case. So they're essentially a monopoly. And so I think it's going to start to wane over time as they start to have to figure out how they break up or whatever happens with their internal operating systems and things like that. But from an SEO perspective, I just look at it as it's so valuable that somebody's literally opening up their phone and they're trying to find you. They're searching dispensary near me. They're searching vape pens near me. They're searching for a certain strain near me. They're so interested in what you have to sell that they're opening up their phone and going in maps, or they're going in their search engine, and then they're trying to find it. So it's like, I can't think of another channel that gives you a chance to get in front of somebody in their exact moment of need. And so that's really ultimately the importance of it, is being able to show up for those things and show up in these people's time of need. I mean, you think about how many times you open up your maps and, hey, I need a restaurant, or hey, I need a new pair of shoes, or I need a new this, or what is this? You have a question about this or that. And it's like, you go to search engines or even AI now to be able to get these questions answered. And so optimizing your site to answer those questions or offer those products or services, and making sure that it's set up for that, so that when you show up, that person's ready to go. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll double down on that point. It's incredibly important because you need to be found in order to sell to that customer. But I think another kind of overlooked area is what happens beyond that too, right? Once you capture that lead, that's great, but the same mechanism that was used to pull in that customer the first time is not necessarily what you're going to rely on to have them coming back again and again and again. So, once you capture that lead, then how are you nurturing that customer as well? How are you keeping them coming back in the store? What are you using to increase that loyalty? I hear time and time again the number one thing that dispensaries are looking for is more customers. Well, what about the customers that you already do have, and serving them to the best of their ability, so that you're retaining those customers, not just cycling through new ones? Because depending on the market you're in, you're only going to get so many coming in your door. There are not a ton of dispensaries in major tourist hubs. So it's important to maintain that loyalty, foster a real connection with the consumer, and make sure that you're speaking their language as well and educating them, so that they're going to say, oh yeah, I'm going to go back to them because they treat me right,
Coming from the product side, and I think you alluded to this a little bit earlier, there's limitations in how we can market to consumers, right? And obviously there's the federal limitations of what platforms we can actually market what services to, and then there's the local regulations of just generally, can we put up a billboard, or what type of ad we can put in a magazine. In Washington, it's pretty restrictive. As most of you know, we were one of the first states to implement a legalized, regulated adult use market. So we've had to kind of find out where the line is and kind of tiptoe around it. But what we found, and this is probably the case in every industry, just having really good content, to the extent that you can do it on all your platforms, your website. We found using blogs and things like this that integrated stores or things that are relevant to our region, Pacific Northwest, into our content, built organic base, just kind of got eyes on what we were doing. There's no replacement for a really good content strategy that leverages building an organic customer base. But then from the SEO front, and this is something foreign to me when I kind of got into the space, was kind of localizing our search engine optimization strategy to the extent that we could with retail stores. And for the average retail store, that was way too sophisticated to figure out a strategy where we can direct eyes to our products at that store. Fast forward 10 years later, and obviously all the best retail stores kind of know about this, and we can leverage certain tools like some of the ones I mentioned, Alpine IQ and Spring Big, to make campaigns that do just that. But we started to come up with creative ways to do localized search engine optimization using geofencing type tools, all things that were new to me that I had to be educated on, that I still have to be educated on. But we found that, we would do a campaign for, let's say, a few weeks, and by using and implementing strategies that don't really cost that much, but just required being having a level of specificity with the strategy, that a campaign would yield twice or three times the amount of engagement, and obviously our ultimate goal is to get sales out of that. So local SEO, a local SEO strategy with the retail stores to the extent that we could, and in a bigger picture sense, a real content strategy that was looking to build long-term customer engagement as opposed to a quick fix, and that's worked well for us.
Yeah, I think we've never been a proponent of just a one-channel only approach as it relates to marketing. So you got Google search and local SEO as part of the strategy, but how do you reinforce your message and get in front of people if they do fall off that menu page the first time that they search for you, or if they are looking at your website and you need them to come back by giving them a certain offer? So we think of paid media holistically. Google search is definitely super intent-based, and we'll feed people into a campaign that way, but we'll reinforce and follow them around the web with things like programmatic media. We run campaigns through the major social platforms these days. The regulations are loosening up a bit. If you know the way to run these campaigns the right way, you can get through on these platforms, and the playing field is definitely being leveled these days. Back when we started marketing for retailers and brands, everybody was just gung-ho on display media because you could say whatever you wanted, and you could just run these campaigns kind of out in the wild. But nowadays, like I was saying before, you can utilize the likes of TikTok, Meta, Instagram, and Google, obviously, in very sophisticated ways to basically follow people around the web with your brand or retail until they go on and convert. And then what also is very important, and that ties all this together, and I'm sure we'll touch on it again before the end here, is ensuring that you're actually tracking the true performance of these campaigns. It's not going to do you any well to just get your brand in front of people. Sure, maybe they'll remember you when they're shopping, but you want to be driving sales, and you want to be tracking those sales to understand what your investment is yielding for you. And I think that's the part that gets lost a lot of the time with some of this activity. So it's definitely important to be able to implement campaigns where you are tracking your bottom line and what's being generated.
Excellent. What emerging trends in technology or digital marketing do you think will have the greatest impact on the industry? And is there any technology that you'd like to see developed that's maybe missing in the market right now?
I think just going back to what I was saying before, just seeing the playing field being leveled a bit more, seeing, ads for dispensaries and brands all over these major social platforms these days is definitely something that is turning heads, and definitely not something that was going on, as early as like maybe even 12 to 18 months ago in the mass way that it is right now. So just, continuing to see the playing field be leveled. From our side, like, we've been developing better attribution tools as it relates to some of these major platforms, just because of the regulations with Meta and TikTok and some of these platforms. They'll break your tracking if you were to send an ad directly to your menu page. So finding ways to still capture the data and the performance has been a big focus of ours. And I'm happy to say that we can actually track when somebody makes a sale after seeing an ad on some of these major platforms, and kind of follow them around and analyze their behavior that way.
In terms of emerging technology, from the product standpoint, as an operator, I think more of the same of what I mentioned: better tools to interpret data, large data sets, to actionable insights more easily. There are plenty of tools out there. I'm certainly not an expert at it. For me, I used just Excel and pivot tables for the longest time. I come from investment banking, so interpreting data was like a requirement to make money. Now they have tools like Tableau, and of course there is a learning curve. Tableau, Power BI. You mentioned Google even has a free platform that you can use, Google Analytics. There are these tools, and I think for interpreting data, we're going to see more secondary market tools that build off these platforms. Even ChatGPT, a lot of these tools are using now to integrate AI and machine learning into taking data, large data sets, and interpreting it into a dashboard that is much more usable to make decisions. But as far as from a shopping experience, I was actually blown away. I just got back from the Olympics yesterday, so I'm still a little. My timing's messed up. I might fall asleep on stage right now. But we went into the USA House, and it was me and my nephews are teenagers. So we went into the USA House. That's like a little immersive experience or whatever. And when we walked in, we scanned like this code. But then they marketed to us for the rest of the time there. And for my nephews, they loved it, right? They had this augmented reality experience in your phone. I absolutely hated it. I hate being marketed to without my permission. Of course, I must have opted into something that, I had to figure out how to opt out of it. But basically, the whole time I was in Paris, they were just spamming us consistently with all these random things every time we went to an event near a stadium. And my nephews absolutely loved it. They were like, this is great. They ended up making us buy them all this swag as a result. But I think that shopping experience, some people are starting to get right. I think it's targeting a specific demographic, which is becoming more and more our customer base, probably especially in newer markets, some of the younger people. But I think that's a trend that personally I don't like. But as somebody who wants to sell stuff to people to make money, we're looking into how do we use augmented reality? How do we do this more localized marketing to attract the eyes and then be able to sell them something?
I'm really glad to hear that the thing that you're looking for that you said first was to be able to interpret big data sets simply and easily, because that's exactly what we're coming out with, connecting all of your systems and be able to talk to your data in real time too. So ask, who are my top customers between the age, or what are my top selling SKUs between the ages of 24 and 28, right? And actually get that information real time. That's exactly what we're launching. And so it's cool to hear. I mean, we saw that white space too, right? What we saw first is all of these different tools are siloed. They don't talk to each other. They don't connect. And that's done by design because, they want to build a moat and they want to do, stay in their very specific lane, and it costs some money to collaborate. But if we're able to connect everyone together, pull that into one place, then you can do some really cool stuff with it. And that's, I'm excited to hear you say that, because that's exactly what we're launching here.
Yeah, I would, for emerging trends and tools, I would definitely agree with that, because outside of the cannabis space, there's a lot more tools and bits of software that really allow you to tie everything in so you can see everything holistically. And I think there's going to be a lot more tools and other things that are going to come up over the next couple of years. But I think right now the biggest thing that's really disrupting everything is AI. And that's from the stance of some of these tools and things, but it's also from the stance of how we create content. So if you're trying to create content, you can certainly maybe change some of your focus. Instead of having writers that are writing content from scratch, they're more editors. So they're using the AI tools to be able to help you write the content, and then they're just spending more time editing it so that it sounds, like a human actually wrote it, and those sorts of things. But there's also AI from the sense of how we search. I mean, Google is now showing generative search results and giving AI answers, or maybe people aren't even using Google at all anymore. And then now they're just asking ChatGPT, or they're asking Claude, or they're asking one of these other platforms their various questions. And a lot of times it's pulling it from different areas on the internet. Of course, there's some issues there with attribution and them not giving attribution where it's properly due. But those types of things I think are going to continue to change over the years. But I also go back to the menu. I mean, the e-commerce menus I think are so important nowadays. I'm seeing a lot of new things popping up where you can you can create a plugin for like a WordPress website, and then you can implement Dutchy Plus or, Dispense or some of these other, software platforms and e-commerce platforms, but they're all different. I mean, I've done some installs with plugins that I'm like, this is great. Most of the stuff is set up. Now we just need to tweak some meta descriptions or tweak a couple other things, and we're looking dialed in. Whereas other plugins are like, they do the same thing, but they don't operate the same way, and so we need to optimize way more areas of the website. And so although they're the same thing, they're not necessarily working the same way. But I think those things are just going to continue to get better over the next couple of years, and it's really being able to dial in those and how to make the most out of them.
Most people in the cannabis industry have a passion for cannabis, and I'd like to ask the panel generally at the end, did you ever think you would be able to legally work in the cannabis industry maybe 15, 20 years ago?
No, I don't. I thought that there would be a time that it would have its day. I just didn't know when it would be, and I didn't know that I'd be able to, be here speaking while people are smoking J's in the audience and just smelling this great amazingness while we're talking about selling weed. I mean, I never pictured it would be like that. It's for me, it's about finding a plant, and it's about health. Like I found cannabis because I've had a lot of health issues with, gut and digestive things, and cannabis for me was just a way to be able to use it as a supplement to help me with various inflammation issues and other things that I've had in my body. And now I can really take that, understanding, and I've been able to develop that into more knowledge about how I can help teach other people about that, and share this message, and then help dispensary owners get in front of other people that have those same type of issues. And it's just amazing. So yeah, I love it because of that.
No, I'm on the same page. I think about this often. If I had told like the 15-year-old me that I'd be, in the weed industry and not just, selling drugs in the underground, like I would have thought that would be pretty cool, and not only that, but to be at a show where you can purchase on site is really, really cool. So it's certainly not something that I expected. I went into finance first, and it was always seen as a big negative, right? I got drug tested. I had to, sweat it out a month before and take niacin and all this kind of stuff to clean my system. And now I can be in a place where it's not just, accepted, but it's absolutely part of the culture. And it's almost the opposite, where if you're not a consumer, it's kind of like, well, are you just here for the money grab? So I know it's a dream come true. Yeah.
You must not have done finance in New York, because doing drugs is like a prerequisite to get a job in investment banking in New York City. But no, when I was younger, I come from a very conservative background. Grew up in a church. My parents, if they were still alive, would still very much disagree with me being in this industry. My dad, he's an engineer, practical guy, so if he saw my laboratory and my production facility, he may have softened on it, but I could still see him shaking his head in his grave like, Jim, you're a drug dealer and you could be doing something else. With that said, when I look at our industry and all the different aspects of it, from from the actual process of creating products, the agricultural component of growing it, the supply chain side, logistics, etc., retailing it, and all the ancillary businesses combined, I definitely couldn't foresee it being like this. I've always hustled weed. Even when I worked in investment banking, I hustled weed just because I always wanted access to the best weed. Because weed for me was a medication. I used to be on ADHD medication growing up, and I learned, unfortunately, that those drugs really can mess up with your brain chemistry. And once I switched to cannabis, perhaps I was too young, but once I switched to cannabis, it kind of provided a clarity for me personally that helped me understand and look into the real science of it. This was back in 2000, of what the plant actually does for people. So for me, it's certainly a passion. I am a capitalist. I'm trying to make some money out here. But beyond that, I heard Jerry Seinfeld say something really interesting in he gave a keynote at a graduation, I think in May, and he talked about passion versus fascination. I'm passionate about this industry, but certainly if I wasn't fascinated in all the aspects of it, I probably would have quit a while ago, right? I've gone through many cycles of failure and success and failure and success, and we're still here. We're a small company. We're making a living, but ultimately, passion can get you so far. Grit, fascination, obviously a bankroll that can make sure you can pay the bills. All these things matter. And what I tell people when I have an opportunity to speak to like new entrepreneurs or people interested in the industry from a business standpoint is just make sure that whatever it is that you're entering into, especially in this space, that you do it the best you can. There's no guarantee of success. People fail in every industry, but in this industry, at least if you are just getting by or just starting out, like there's a bunch of cool ass people that will help you. And I did not see that in the investment banking world. Everybody was out to get you, but in this industry, I find that you ask, people will help you. They'll point you in a direction. They'll connect you with somebody, and we're just at the start, right? There's still so much value that's going to be created. The biggest companies in this industry 20 years from now, some of them might not have even started yet. Maybe some of them are going to be started by some of you guys out there right now. So I love this industry. I don't plan on doing anything else unless somebody stops me, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of what you're saying. Like, if I wasn't passionate about it, we wouldn't be here anymore, given all the trials and tribulations over the years. And then just another theme that was brought up here before, when a lot of our clients have come to us, they've had failed experiences with agencies outside of this industry. So I think it's so important to find partners that are passionate and knowledgeable and live in this industry day in and day out, because you can't understand it from an outsider's perspective. You need to be seeing the different nuances, and being a consumer myself, that helps inform a lot of what we do for clients. Everybody on our team is spread across different markets in the U.S., so they each bring their own unique perspective to how we approach particular clients. And I think without that, you're bound to fail. So yeah, passion is definitely something that's required in this industry. And like you were also saying, like, we're not even at the tip of the iceberg at this point. We're at very, very early days, ton of value to come, and we're all bringing our part to it each and every day.
Thank you. I know the government has reduced restrictions, and there's going to be more studies about like the medical benefits of cannabis. Do you think that'll affect your market and marketing plans?
Yeah, I mean, just on the marketing front, there is a ton of regulation around making medical claims. Just to give you guys an example, even this week, using the words like New Haven for relaxation and rejuvenation, that was rejected as something that we could say for a client's radio ad, because that was too close to being a medical claim. So I think when more studies are done and when we actually have more cumulative information to the medical benefits, that'll totally change the game as it relates to marketing. You see all of these prescription drug commercials on late night TV that talk about all these different things that they do. Hopefully we'll be able to do the same with cannabis in our advertising.
We have the privilege of doing some research in Washington State. We have one of the 3 cannabis research licenses in Washington State. There's no benefit to that except you pay more money every year to the state. They give you no support. So it's not like, at the federal level where you can apply for grants and things like that. But what's happening at the federal level with some of the legislation that has passed already, specifically related to the VA studying medicinal cannabis for common ailments that affect soldiers, that PTSD kind of being the most common one. I think any type of more or any amount of more research that goes into studying our plant beyond what we know is THC, but all of these other cannabinoids is good for our industry. As an example, in University of Washington, we work with at arm's length, because University of Washington gets a lot of federal funding, so they can't technically do any studies that are aligned with us. But we work with a group there, and the professor who runs a lab, he studies specifically CBC and CBD as to see how it treats neurodegenerative disorders. specifically Huntington's disease and Alzheimer's, because some of these cannabinoids seem to show some indications that they can assist in neurogenesis or rebuilding certain aspects of cells in the brain. And, this is a heady guy, right? He runs a lab there. He's been doing it for 20 years, and he smokes weed. On the low, but he smokes weed. And when you have this type of research, a real researcher who gets millions of dollars of grants from the federal government to study a plant in a specific way, this information is good for our industry, right? We need as much research as possible to help people understand that, yes, there are aspects of the plant that can be harmful. For instance, THC for people who have indications of psychosis. It's been studied and shown and proven that cannabis is probably not good for those people. Also, cannabinoids, specifically THC for the developing brain, adolescents, can be harmful. So, we have to be honest about all of the aspects of cannabis, and research, I think, helps inform us, gives us better information, more information to not only help us educate people, but for those of us that develop products, develop better, newer, more innovative products.
I think it's no secret that the federal prohibition of cannabis has hurt research into the plant from a medicinal standpoint. But what's really exciting for me is to see. So we one of our primary tools is product recommendations, right? So you fill out intake form about your experience level, what kind of effects you're looking for, but also biological factors around alcohol, tobacco, exercise, diet. And over here, because this is very much not a medical environment, even though a lot of markets start out medical, then go rec, it's always pseudo-rec in those medical markets, and everyone's focused on basket size and frequency, right? And it's treated as a CPG product. How much THC can we pack in the product? How much can we, give you your bang for your buck and just get people in and out the door? What we see in Europe is totally different, though. The reception for our product recommendation tools in the States is very much as a sales tool, right? How much more cannabis can we sell to consumers? In Europe, in Germany, in the UK, we're working with clinics and pharmacies. It's how can I get the patient to find the right medicine? And that kind of thinking hasn't really made its way over here yet. We're still focused on, just selling whatever's the top grossing product, whatever, gives swag, whatever gives a benefit, but it's not really about finding that right fit, because if you sell a product to a consumer and they have an adverse experience, you've turned that consumer off to cannabis for life potentially. And that's not just a consumer that you lost out on having repeat purchases, but the entire industry has. And so I'm really excited we're going to run some observational studies in Germany with the legislation out there, and take that information back to the States to have more effective formulations. I don't know that the federal rescheduling will open up some access to more research and more medicinalized cannabis, but I think it's really going to be the research in the European markets and the effectiveness of those products that help inform the U.S. market about what to put out from a generally recognized as safe product standpoint. Not even going down the full prescription route. So I think it will get there, but it's going to take a lot more than just federal rescheduling to achieve a more medicinal mindset here in the States.
Quickly, because we're out of time.
What's that? Oh, quick. That's okay. I think research is going to be huge. It's looking at research as a whole, there's a lot of things we don't know about this yet. There's huge arguments around what terpenes are in a product, what the cannabinoids are, what the ratio of the cannabinoids is, and all these different things. And I know that there are companies that are trying to make effects-based products, which I think are good, but at the same time, I've taken plenty of indica products and been sitting there and I'm like, I'm not sleepy. And I've taken plenty of sativa things that I don't feel awake from. And so I think just the more research that you can do, but from a marketing standpoint, I think you can remember that the research can also be the marketing. If you partner with a university or with someone that's got a good name in the medical space or something like that to be able to create a research article, that's something that you can promote. And even though you're just promoting information, you're still pushing this industry forward. You're still creating a good piece of content for your website. You're creating something that other people might want to reference if they're writing articles or supporting data to kind of get your article out there. And so, the more research, the better, and being able to leverage that to push this industry forward, I think is going to be huge.
Awesome, everybody. That's it for our presentation. Give it up for our esteemed panel.